Hi, good morning. Today we'll be discussing about working capital management. Working capital management is also known as managing current assets. An efficient finance manager or treasury manager need to manage the current assets of a company to maintain a good liquidity. At the same time, the idle funds are to be moved to some other format to earn some amount. Earning some amount doesn't mean that you should be aggressive. No. So you'll have to give importance to liquidity, risk, and also the profitability. In the management of current assets, you should always give importance for these three components: L, P, R: liquidity, profitability, and risk. And all these current assets or liquid assets in some order. What is the order? The current assets order include cash and bank balances, marketable securities, accounts receivable, inventory, and prepayments. All these together called as current assets. Cash and bank balances, marketable securities means short-term investments. Any cash is there in the company and which you don't need for a period of a month or 2 months or 3 months, then you can just convert them into marketable securities. Short-term investments, fixed deposits, treasury bonds that can be encashed, can be converted back into cash in a short period of time. But only thing is, you need to give importance to the high liquidity. Means the moment we want it to be converted into cash without any hassles, the marketable securities should be converted back into cash. Then we'll discuss about marketable securities management, accounts receivable management, inventory management. There's nothing about prepayments. We cannot convert this back into cash. Prepayments mean the advance payments. The payments which need to be done in future, sometimes we'll have to pay in current period, like insurance. Insurance premium is to be paid on quarterly basis or off yearly basis or sometimes maybe yearly basis. So you are being here on January 1st paying for full year until December 31st. If you talk about the period first quarter, January, February, March, the remaining 9 months is a prepaid. Okay, this amount what you paid to the insurance company is prepaid. So instead of having a cash outflow in next 9 months, you had an outflow on January 1st itself. So you no need to pay cash. You no need to use cash for the next 9 months on account of insurance. That's the reason why it is considered in current asset. But unlike other assets, it never be converted back into cash. So the list of current assets include cash and bank balances, marketable securities, accounts receivable, inventory, and prepayments. Please remember the order of current assets in the same way, because this is also the presented in order of liquidity. How fast we convert them back into cash. And you can easily recognize this. The course what you are doing is CMA. Please pause immediately. Immediately pause. CMA IP. So whenever I ask you what are the current assets, CMA IP is the acronym you should use always. Let us discuss in detail how to manage the working capital. The management of working capital is nothing but management of current assets. The primary goal of a working capital management is to have sufficient amount of cash for day-to-day operations of the business. You have utility bills, you have supplier balances, you have tax dues, you have any pending amounts to staff which need to be paid from current assets. So I mean to say here, the cash balances or current assets balances should be sufficient to pay your current liabilities. Current liabilities include any amount which are to be paid in a short period of time. Every month you pay utility bills on time, need to have sufficient amount in current assets. Every month on a particular date you need to pay salaries, you should have this money. Every month you pay the other expenses, office expense and all, you need to have money. You have accounts payable here, your creditor balances, need to pay them on due dates or before due dates. So having sufficient current assets will help you run the organization smoothly. Otherwise, every day there is an issue. Every day there is an issue. So it is very difficult to manage the firm on day-to-day basis without having sufficient current assets to meet current liabilities. Okay, so that's the reason why let us manage these current assets well, not to have those troubles. Manage your cash and bank balances, manage your marketable securities, manage your accounts receivable, manage your accounts payable as well by paying them on time. And management of all these components together is called as working capital management. Working capital. What is working capital? Working capital is the amount available for your day-to-day operations of the business. You need to operate the business on daily basis without any hassles. The hassles only come because of the shortage of cash, because of the shortage of current assets. Therefore, concentrate on working capital. Working capital, there are two types of working capitals: gross working capital and net working capital. Gross working capital is nothing but the total of current assets. Total of current assets. Unless I mention gross working capital, do not think of gross working capital at all, which is current asset, which gives you wrong meaning. In fact, that means CMAIP alone. This is called gross working capital. But net working capital is the difference between current assets and current liabilities. So now onwards, whether it is net working capital or only working capital, it is the difference between current asset and current liabilities. But never think of CMAIP as working capital, please. Only when the term is used as gross working capital, it is CMAIP, the total of CMAIP. Whether working capital or net working capital is, or the terms used, that is the difference between current assets and current liabilities. Okay, so let us forget about gross working capital. We have only working capital, which is net working capital, and which can be found by deducting current liabilities from current assets. What are current liabilities? Current liabilities are the obligations which need to be paid on time whenever they become due. Remember again, in assets you have two types of assets: current assets and fixed assets. Fixed assets like factory building, furniture, vehicles, machinery, equipment, land, etc. You have current assets, CMAIP. You have current liabilities. Never expect to pay that the payment will be done from fixed asset to current liability. on current liabilities. It is nothing but employee salary is paid by selling the company's vehicles. It's a bad symptom. It's a bad symptom. So next month, which asset you will sell to pay salary of next month? It's a bad symptom, right? So this is not to be done. When you are using fixed assets, money to pay current liabilities, something is going wrong in the company. Clear? So this is not to be encouraged at all. Therefore, you have an asset group called current asset, which takes care of current liabilities. This is the reason why we call it as working capital, whether we have positive working capital or not. Preferably always you need to have a positive working capital 100% in every company. What does it mean? The current asset CMAIP total should be greater than the current liabilities of the company. Okay. Preferably it should be, double as compared to current liability. Then what current liabilities include? The current liabilities include accounts payable, nothing but your supplier balances, which need to be paid bill to bill as on the due date. Notes payable. Notes payable means it's not net profit, it's note payable. Notes payable means same accounts payable, but we might have given some promissory note, a check, post-dated check, or bill of exchange, etc. That's called notes payable. Any oral promise when you buy the goods is called accounts payable. Any written promise when you purchase goods on credit is called notes payable. Say for example, I purchase goods worth $50,000 from a supplier, from a creditor. I have a good relationship with the supplier. I did not give him a check. I did not give him a bills. I did not give him a promissory note. It becomes accounts payable. Means it's an open account. Oral promise. Oral promise. So I have a relationship with the supplier that I pay this bill on 30th day. That is understood between the supplier and my company. It's an open account. That becomes accounts payable. Now the supplier is asking, give me check of 1 month date from now. So 30th January, say for example. Here we gave a check. We gave a check for the invoice amount. That becomes notes payable. So it's a post-dated check. Okay. Then outstanding payments, outstanding expenses means accrued expenses. Any expenses of the prior period, current period are not yet paid. Outstanding or accrued expenses. Then any incomes received in advance. Incomes received in advance. Next month, next quarter, we received in advance. Okay. Next, we have short-term loans, overdraft. Okay. Taxes due. Okay. Next, current portion of long-term loan. Current portion of long-term loan. Like you have 10 million loan. Okay. This is to be paid annually with equal installments along with interest. This 10 million is to be paid in 5 installments of 2 million each. So 2 million first year, 2 million second year, third year 2 million, fourth year 2 million, and fifth year 2 million. We are here now, 31st December. So 2 million will become current liability. The remaining 4 million is a long-term liability. Next year, one more 2 million will become current liability, and 6 million will become long-term liability. It goes on like that. It's called, equal installment. Yeah. So 2 million only will become current liability. All these amounts are to be taken care by current asset. Do you have enough current assets? to pay them on time? Did you prepare a list of all these amounts due? And did you find out the total amount available as per the due date here? You have current assets, but in which format? Inventory format. Oh my god. Inventory has to become what? Sale, which becomes accounts receivable, customer balances. Based on the due dates, it will become current asset. Also, cash account. This cash will be paid for taxes, OD, STL, short-term loans, yeah, etc. So, you need to have these current assets in proper liquidity format to pay them all on time. Say utility bills, outstanding expenses. Last time electricity bill is not yet paid. Then issue. Last time telephone bill, last month telephone bill still not paid because there is no enough cash. We have lots of receivables, we have lots of inventory, okay, but no cash available. Current assets are good, current assets are good, but in the form of inventory. So you should see the payment capacity of the company as and when the bills come. Therefore, we need to see the day-to-day position of the current assets. Okay. So current assets, as we discussed, is a total of CMAIP, which is called gross working capital as well. Gross working capital is the total of current assets, cash, bank balances, marketable securities, accounts receivable, inventories, and prepayments. Whereas net working capital is the difference between current assets and current liabilities. And always net working capital has to be positive. If current assets are greater than current liabilities, we call it as positive working capital or positive net working capital. Whereas if current assets are less than current liabilities, it is called negative working capital or negative net working capital. Negative net working capital is always trouble. Don't work for this company. Okay, it's an issue always, every day. Okay, working capital. Why don't we have enough working capital? Why don't we have enough working capital? No. If you have heavy working capital, that is also an issue. Why? We studied that every capital amount is invested, okay, in the form of what? The capital, like bonds, preference shares, common shares, or the amounts invested in current assets and fixed assets. Fixed assets like vehicles, furniture, factory building, machinery, etc. are well used in running the business, selling the goods, producing the goods, etc. etc. So if the capital amount is invested here, you will earn more profits. But if you do not have sufficient cash balances, you cannot pay current liabilities. So what I mean to say is, if you have more current assets, entire your capital is vested in current assets, which cannot be used for what? Producing the goods, which cannot be used for distributing the goods. So management wants to see most of the capital portion should be used in fixed assets. But how do you manage with current assets to pay current liabilities? So Working Capital Balancing Act says ensuring the current assets sufficiently liquid to maximize the risk of insolvency, minimize the risk of insolvency. So here, to have the less risk, have enough current assets so that there will be no risk of insolvency. Insolvency means you don't have enough money to pay to pay current liabilities. But why should have lots of current assets here? Because the cost is there on the capital. Let us maintain minimum current assets minimum current assets so that this amount can be maximum invested in fixed assets to get high return. See, you are giving importance for the profit. Return means profit. You are minimizing your investment in the working capital. Why? You are giving importance for the profits. You are giving importance here for liquidity to reduce the risk. Remember, we are using the three terms: liquidity, profitability, and risk. Liquidity means having enough amounts in current assets. Liquidity means, high liquidity means having enough amounts in current assets to reduce the risk. But profitability will be badly affected if you have more no current assets. So the other hand, and if you give less importance to liquidity, your profit will be higher because you are diverting your capital amount into fixed assets, but your risk may be higher. You need to manage the risk as well. This is called working capital balancing act, whether to maintain lot of amount of current assets, ignoring the high profitability, or we manage the minimum working capital, giving importance to maximum return. That's profitability. So we have two types of working capital policies. Working capital policies include conservative and aggressive. Conservative means you want to maintain more liquidity by having lots of current assets, big current assets against small current liability. So lots of your capital is invested in current assets, ignoring the fixed assets. We want to purchase our own trucks. We want to purchase our own trucks. We borrowed money. We wanted 10 trucks, but we purchased only 8 trucks. The remaining 2 trucks money we used in current asset. This is a bank loan. Bank loan has some interest cost, isn't it? We are using money, 2 trucks equivalent money in current assets, and purchased only 8 trucks. The remaining 2 trucks we hire them on rental basis. To maintain good liquidity, we are conservative about working capital, so our liquidity is higher. Happy. Current asset balances are there. But the profitability is less. Why? Because these remaining 2 trucks are hired from outside. Why did you do so? So I need enough cash balances to pay all my current liabilities on time, so that I don't want any risk from my suppliers, utilities, unpaid amounts and salaries, office expenses, factory expenses. So the risk, to reduce the risk of not having enough cash balances, we have a policy called working capital policy called conservative. In the case of conservative working capital, your current assets will be too good to make over your current liabilities. So in other words, you have higher amount of current assets against a medium amount of current liabilities. So at any time there is a requirement, cash is ready to pay. But you are diverting most amount of capital towards only the current assets, so the profitability will be less. Why are you doing so? I do not want any risk in my day-to-day operations. I want to reduce my risk. I don't want any phone calls from my suppliers for the payments. I don't want my employees to wait for the salary. I don't want my utility bills to be paid after the due date. Okay, so the risk is reduced here. This policy is called as conservative working capital policy. Some management do not like this kind of thing. We are paying interest on the other side and you are keeping lots of amount in current assets. The profit is not as expected. So maintain a sharp working capital, neck to neck. Current liability, current asset, current liability, current asset travel together. So there is risk, manage it because we want profit. So maintain less liquidity, maintain less amount of current assets against current liabilities. This policy is called as aggressive policy. You have $1,000 of due, you will maintain 900,000, 950 like that. So the liquidity is lower as compared to the conservative working capital policy. Why are you doing so? Management is keen about the profitability, not to divert funds like this. So once you take loan, you try to buy 10 because we don't want to hire this. The higher charges and all will reduce my profit. So no, we don't want to. But we have less current assets. Okay, we'll manage with the liabilities. Tomorrow we'll pay sir. Day after tomorrow we'll pay sir. Okay, manager is not in the country. Owner is not in the country. Yeah, giving importance for profitability. But how long you can manage with your suppliers? How long you can postpone the payments? So business faces risk on daily basis. Risk is high. Some management like to have this because of no compromise in the case of profitability. Okay, so we call it as LPR relationship. L for liquidity, P for profitability, and R for risk. Giving importance to the plus and minus, pros and cons of these two policies, you need to maintain a working capital called optimal working capital policy or optimum working capital policy. This you will understand once you work for a company for or 5 to 6 months time. So you'll have some fluctuations. There will be risk one day, there will be no risk one day. So you'll come to know that what amount of working capital need to be maintained, not to give importance for liquidity, not to give importance for profitability, not to face any risk. So you maintain some medium level of working capital, which is called optimal working capital or optimum working capital policy. For this there is no formula, there is no calculation, but you will understand based on the business operations as the time passes. So aggressive working capital, as we know the advantages and disadvantages, conservative working capital as well. The next coming to working capital basics include the assets which we use in the working capital calculations, which include cash, marketable securities, accounts receivable, inventory, and of course accounts payable, which is a major high amount of credit in your company, accruals, the expenses, unpaid expenses, short-term loans, okay, gross working capital, net working capital discussed. So working capital requires funds. In which funds? In which funds? Current assets. Okay, current assets. You need to have enough working capital to pay your current liabilities by having enough cash balances, accounts receivable, and inventory, etc. Why do you need this money? Because there is a huge amount on your current liability. Most of the trading industries, the huge amount lies in accounts payable, that is your creditor balances, who supplied goods to your company. They are to be paid on time to have the business continuity, which is called trade credit or spontaneous finance. So accounts payable in any company or notes payable in any company is nothing but spontaneous finance. Spontaneous finance means it's a rolling finance by the supplier. It never ends. You purchase 1 million worth of goods, sell them, get cash, pay them back. Then it becomes minus 1 million. By that time you might have purchased 500,000. 500,000 is plus balance. This you paid. Okay, you sell the goods, pay them, then you purchase 1 point. It goes on like this. You purchase the inventory, sell them, collect cash, go and pay supplier, that is accounts payable or notes payable. Again you purchase the material. It goes on like that. Think of a trading company, a retail industry. A retail industry will never cut the relationship with the suppliers, dealers. Say you are running an electronic showroom. Of course, you need to have good relationship with the dealers. What happens if you do not pay the bills on time? They don't supply you goods. Your showroom is empty. Your customer asks for the goods. No inventory available. So, spontaneous finance means you buy goods on credit but pay them on time. Where do you pay it from? Where do you pay it from? Say, for example, here accounts payable. You purchase goods worth say 5 million. Now, this has become inventory, means stock item. Okay, inventory is not cash equivalent, but it has to be turned into sale. Sale, you sold the goods on credit. So accounts receivable, sundry debtors, your debtor balance. But he took 30 days time, okay, then he paid you cash. This cash you need to pay to your supplier. This is called a cycle, cash conversion cycle. Cash conversion cycle. Say for example, your supplier is giving you 90 days credit. Your inventory sold is sold in 15 days time after the purchase. See, 90 days time your counting started. The moment he sent you the goods, 90, 89, 87, 53, okay, 45. It goes on like that. Before that, before before we reach 90th day, we should be able to finish this off. 15 days we are able to sell the goods on credit to a customer. Customer said that I'll pay you on 30th day. So 15 days we took to sell the inventory plus 30 days to collect money. In 45 days we are collecting money. We have a good system now. You can pay to supplier, you can even ask some discount because you are paying 45 days in advance. If the supplier says that sorry, we don't offer any discount, you can come back and pay me on 90th day. Why should we pay 45 days in advance? So this 45 days, what we do is we go to a bank that we have $5 million. Okay, what to do? So they may say that okay, invest for 40 days because that 5 days a buffer period to pay your supplier to convert the amount into cash. They may mention that you deposit this money in fixed deposit for 40 days and the fixed deposit for 40 days it is 4% per annum. So 40, oh sorry, for 40 days the amount will come like this: 5 million times 4%, and we are safe side investing for only 40 days because that 5 days I want buffer to pay to convert this FD into cash, then pay supplier. 40 divided by 360 in a year. Okay, so 5 million into 40%, 4% per annum into 40 days over 360 days. So we have a gross working capital or net working capital. Okay, net working capital. As we know that the gross working capital is current assets only, but net working capital is nothing but current assets minus current liabilities. Current assets minus current liabilities. And this amount is to be used to support the routine operations of the business on daily basis, and this is what the objective of our working capital. To have the trade-off means not to have heavy working capital, not to have low working capital. If you have heavy working capital, you call it as conservative working capital policy, giving importance to only liquidity, not to have risk, but profitability will be very less. If you are maintaining an aggressive working capital policy, you are working capital will be too high, working capital will be too low, and current liabilities too high. In that case, what happens is your risk is higher. Though your profitability is higher, your risk is higher. So low working capital, high working capital, maintain a trade-off. Maintain a trade-off, not to have no low working capital, not to have high working capital. Like I maintain high amount of cash in my company. The benefit reduces the risk, reduces the risk of short-term payments. But I need to borrow money to keep in the cash balances, not to have risk on the short-term payments. It increases the finance cost. So we have a benefit that the company does not face any risk in day-to-day operations of the business, but the cost of financing will increase. What happens when we maintain low level of cash? The finance cost will be less, but as contrary to this, the risk will increase. So we have to manage with the low cash balances. Likewise, inventory. When you maintain heavy amount of inventories in our stores, you will have happy customers because they get what they want. Okay, all the product lines are available, and a few production delays in the case of manufacturing companies, because all the raw materials are purchased in right order, in the right quantities, at the right time. But it is expensive because you are holding lots of inventory, high storage costs. Also, the risk of obsolescence. The products may become outdated if you buy huge amount of inventories. What happens if you maintain low level of inventory? You will have shortages. Shortages means the customer asks for the product, but you don't have in your showroom. What happens? You will lose margin on that. You will lose margin. Any loss of margin due to non-availability of a product is called stock out cost. Stock out cost, not out of stock, please. Stock out cost. Stock out cost is the margin lost on the goods which are not available with us. Means customer is not ready but not the product. Any margin lost on the out of stock goods is called a stock out cost. Say for example, we have a product which can be sold for 1500. The product name is XYA1. This is a product. If I sell this product, as my cost of this product is 1300, I would get a margin of $200. But this product is not in my is not there in my showroom because I am maintaining inventory at low levels. Okay, yesterday I sold these products. There was an unexpected customer who purchased 10 pieces. I thought that these 10 pieces are sufficient for one week. Okay, but one customer purchased all 10 pieces. Next day morning we place an order, but after placing the order, only 3 days after that we'll get the inventory. So for the next 2 days also, we'll have to put a board called out of stock. So whenever you find a customer for this product and the product is not available, every time you are losing $200 margin, which is called stock out cost. Okay, shortages lead to stock out costs. And of course, we'll have dissatisfied customers. One customer asks for product X, product Y, A, B, C. You will say X is not available, Y is not available, B is not available, but A we have many. Do you like to buy more A? No, dissatisfied customers. You'll go to your competitor. What are the benefits of having low inventories? Low storage cost because you don't need to buy bundles and store them. And less risk of obsolescence, that you buy bundles, heavy amount of inventory or not sold out on time. may become outdated. The products may become outdated. Likewise, accounts receivable. We sell on cash. You have a signboard, only cash, no credit. This pinches your customer. Okay, turn the board. Turn the board as we sell only on credit. You don't find this board, of course. You will have happy customers. Okay, right? So credit encourages the customers to buy more so that you will have high sales. But credit, you are selling the goods for 30 days credit, 45 days credit. This 30 days, 45 days, okay, your money is there in the market, and the other side you are paying interest on short-term loans, OD, etc. You owe money to the banks, they're charging interest. Your customer owe you, your customers owe you, but you are not charging interest. So it is an expensive to have loans the other side and receivables in the market. Okay, and the customer buys the goods on that day, you will have a good relationship. But when you start asking money, you have trouble. So you need to have a proper collection department, collection expenses. If the customers take more time, it will lead to increase in finance costs. Now, I do not want to have heavy amount of accounts receivable. So I'll be maintaining strict terms in credit sales. That it's not 30 days or 45 days, it is only 15 days. The customers are not happy. They may say that in 15 days, do you expect that we will sell the goods, pay you cash? So selling goods and collecting cash and paying you, the 15 days may not be enough. So you will have less sales. They buy less goods, or they may go to your competitor. But the benefit is less expensive. You have low amount of accounts receivable, and the amount can be collected on time. Okay, and expenses, bad debt expenses, etc. will be very low. Sorry. And the other side, accounts payable. You don't want to give credit to your customers, but you want to have credit from your suppliers, right? What happens if you have high accounts payable credit limit? It's good for you because you don't need to borrow money from bank to buy the goods. Say for example, your supplier is giving you 90 days credit. You buy on an average say 1 million worth of goods every month. Say in the month of your January, you are purchasing 1 million worth of goods, which will be due only on 31st March. So January 1st to 31st March, it's an interest-free loan. Can we say like that? Yes. Only thing is, how fast you sell these goods and collect money to pay your supplier is very much important. But otherwise, we can say this is an interest-free loan. On the other side, if your supplier says that we sell only for cash, so you need to go to a bank, so bank loan at the rate of 9%, purchase the goods 1 million. Your interest period begins on January 1st. You sell the goods on February 10th. Customer takes 40 days time. So February 28 means 18 days here. Okay, and remaining 12 days in the month of March. So March 15th or so you will get this money to pay your bank. So by the time the interest cost will be a burden to you. That's the reason why we call it a spontaneous finance with no interest. Then unhappy suppliers, if you ask more credit period, or if you ask, more credit period or more credit amount, the supplier may not be happy. He may say that you are not worth of it. If you maintain low levels, okay, happy suppliers, happy employees as well, or employees also, because no accounts payable sub purchasing department is very happy because they can negotiate the prices at a highly lowest prices. And the problem here is not using a spontaneous credit. You are using the finance money. That will affect your profit badly. So this is the reason why the maintenance of your current assets to have the relationship between the profitability, risk, etc. If you maintain high current assets, what happens? Your profitability will be higher. Profitability is lower, not higher, because most of the amount is in current assets. Profitability is lower, risk is also lower. But if you maintain low level current assets, the profitability will be higher, but risk will also be higher. So you'll have to have a trade-off between these two, risk, profitability, and cash conversion cycle. As we know that the cash conversion cycle begins the moment you purchase the goods. The moment you purchase the goods, it is there in the inventory format. Sell the goods, it will become credit sale, receivable. Then receivable, you convert it into cash, okay, then pay back to your inventory suppliers, and the remaining amount you will be paying, taxes, interest, etc. In other words, you have accounts payable who sold goods to you on credit, say for example $50,000. So your inventory is there with the $50,000 in your warehouse, and this is sold to a customer after 20 days time. It becomes debtor. Customer is accounts receivable here. You sold it for 75,000. Now he took 30 days credit. He paid you cash 75,000. This 75,000 you will be paying 50,000 to your accounts payable to clear off the bill. The remaining 25,000 will go towards your admin expenses, selling expenses, distribution expenses, interest cost, taxes. Then the remaining amount is your net income. So every sale will have a cost of goods sold, and the remaining amount has to cover up all these admin expenses, selling expenses, distribution expenses. If you have any bank loans, interest, then taxes. The rest is your net income. So in a cash conversion cycle, this happen here. So how fast you have this cash conversion cycles in a business operations? Okay, it needs to be monitored, like your purchasing inventory, yeah, then production process, sell the goods, collect cash to pay them back. It's called cash conversion cycle. You have two types of maintenance of the working capital, whether it is gross working capital or net working capital. The maintenance of the working capital is of two types: permanent working capital and temporary working capital. Permanent working capital or temporary working capital. Whether it is gross working capital or net working capital, you maintain permanently or fluctuating, temporary. So here permanent working capital sometimes is used for the usage of purchase of any other current asset like inventory, okay, fixed assets, and based on the liquidity and profitability use permanent working capital and uh, 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 temporary working capital, and you need to study the trade-offs like this. Based on the trade-off what we studied in accounts receivable, cash management, etc., this is your permanent working capital which you require always. This is for your capital assets, for the purchase of assets like furniture, equipment, vehicles, etc. Okay. It is required. Permanent, it is required. For what? Every month you have salaries. Every month you have utility bills. Every month you have some other expenses. And if you want to buy any asset or something, that amount should also be, used from here. So permanent working capital, for the purchase of any assets, you need to have some money. This is in the case of stable company, means all the 12 months are same for this company. But in the case of seasonal company, you need to have some temporary working capital as well. Why? Because there is a season here. Season here, you need to buy more inventory. So this working capital especially is required. Say for example, Diwali in jewelry shop, they need to maintain good amount of inventory during this period. So we need to have lots of inventory. Your CMAI, this I will affect here during this period. Getting me? So in temporary working capital, you need to monitor the seasonality of the business, and during that period, you need to inject lots of inventory. So your current portion will increase, current asset portion will increase in the case of temporary working capital, seasonal business. For all these current assets and current liabilities, you need to have a proper maturity matching principle. This is the reason why we prepare daily cash flow to meet our current requirements. What is the requirement? What is the bank balance? Based on that. Say for example, you have an insurance policy for your business, okay, which is to be paid quarterly, every quarter, April 1st, January 1st, April 1st, July 1st, and October 1st. You are preparing cash flows. These are all inflows. You are preparing outflows. These are all outflows. Now, if this is the month you are preparing for the month of April, this insurance premium due will come in a outflows. So in that case, you need to have a buffer in the cash balances, your working capital, your current assets. You need to have sufficient amount to have this insurance. This is called maturity matching principle. You may have a property taxes due here. The property taxes will come in this if you are preparing the cash position for October. So you need to have a maturity matching principle not to have any trouble. You may have regular cash flows. You may have some cash flows which occur often, once in a year or twice in a year, like that. So this net working capital, in the case of seasonal, it is very important. You need to identify the seasonality of the business and pump in. Permanent working capital, you need to have some calculations that what is a monthly requirement and try to have that amounts in your cash balances. Okay. So if you need this money, permanent working capital, you no need to borrow on daily basis. Better you borrow in long term. So it is required on long term basis. But if you need a temporary working capital, borrow it in short term financing. Why? Because you borrow it for this season is for 3 months, say for example. Okay, buy the inventory before 1 month or 2 months, complete it, sell it, and pay it back. Next year, when the season comes in this period, you need to borrow again. But don't borrow for 1 year or 2 years term period. 3 months or 4 months borrowing is okay, fine. But in the case of permanent working capital, better you have long-term debt. Okay, borrow it for 5 years, borrow it for 2 years, because this amount is required on daily basis. Okay, short-term conservative, long-term conservative, short-term aggressive policy. We saw also the effect of aggressive and conservative working capital policy. Then we need to see short-term versus long-term financing. Short-term financing is risky. Okay, why? Because you are financing for short period. You are getting finance for short period, and you need to arrange uh, that money whenever it becomes due. So that operating cycle successfully should be completed to convert it into cash. So your cash operating cycle, which is called cash conversion cycle, should be healthily completed. Okay, when you go for short-term financing. Long-term financing, it is safe but expensive. Why? Because you need to meet lots of requirements. Okay, and you may have to pay heavy interest on that. Working capital policies we discussed. Now the cash management. Okay, let's begin with the one component, cash management, which is a part of working capital management. Working capital management consists of current asset management, accounts payable management. Now we are with current asset management. Current assets, as we studied the CMA. Now we are here, cash management. Organizations need to maintain cash balances. Organizations need to maintain cash balances because this is a medium of exchange used for any kind of transactions. You purchase material, pay, settle by cash. You purchase vehicles, settle by cash. You repay loans, settle by cash. So it's a perfect medium of exchange for any kind of transaction. 100% medium. Highly liquid asset, 100% liquid asset. So the cash management is very much important in every company. Companies should hold cash. Companies should hold cash on hand. On hand doesn't mean that it should be in the company. No, it is in the bank. Cash in hand means not in the office. It means it is in a bank balance in current accounts. Why the companies hold cash? There are three motives of holding cash. One, day-to-day transactions. Okay, you have lots of bills on daily, stationery, printing, salaries, electricity, water, telephone, supplier balances, etc., etc. This is called transaction motive. So in the transaction motive, you need to have the due dates of each and every transaction and pay money on time, so that the relationship with stakeholders will build up. If you postpone the payments, they may not have the faith on your business. Therefore, the transaction motive cash is very much important to pay the bills on time. Precautionary motive. Precautionary motive means any uncertainties, okay, whether you are ready to face or not, having enough cash balances. So companies need to maintain some precautionary balance as well to handle emergencies. And speculation motive. Speculation motive means you need to have sometimes have enough money to take the advantage of adverse condition of others. Say for example, your supplier is in dire need of money. You purchase goods worth 1 million. You used to give 2 months credit earlier. Now the supplier is saying that I need money desperately. Can you please help me out? Yes, I will help you out, but can you give me 2% discount? Supplier says no worries, no worries. You settle 2% and pay the remaining amount. So you are paying only 98% of the bill, leaving 2%. This 2% itself is your profit here. At the time of purchasing, you are earning profit. See, listen carefully. Usually what happens, we purchase goods, we produce goods, we sell goods and make money here, or profit comes from here. But when you have the speculation motive here, at the time of purchasing itself, we are making profit. So paying 100, we are paying $2, we are paying 98. $2 is a profit for every $100. For a period of how much? 2 months. 2 months, 2% means 1 month it is 1%, right? 2 months, 2% means 1 month, 1%. So means 12% you are earning here, 12% per annum. If your bank is charging you say 6% or 7% on OD or short-term loans, You take loan at 6% or 7% to enjoy this 12%. Or if he is charging, if he is giving you 5% discount for the settlement of the bill within 2 months, means on the spot instead of 2 months. So for 2 months it is 5%. If it is 12 months, what is the gain here? Yeah, 12 divided by 2 into 5. So it is almost 30%. You borrow money from bank at the rate of 6% and enjoy an income of 30% per annum here. So when you convert this discount in an annualized way, it is equivalent to 30% income. So having enough cash, sometimes you can even do speculation to get uh, some kind of profit at the time of purchase. So the motives of cash include transaction motive, precautionary motive, speculation motive. When we know that these are the motives of holding cash, why don't we hold enough amount of cash here to have the speculation? Yeah, okay. So in that case, if you hold lots of cash in your company, what happens is cash does not earn any return. It doesn't lay eggs. It is there in your current account. Banks do not pay any interest on current account. Okay. So if you keep in your balance millions of cash in bank current account, banks do not pay any interest. Okay. That's the reason why it has to be rotated. Only the cash is to be maintained in the company to maintain some liquidity, to take cash discounts. It's a speculation purpose. And not only that, if you do not have enough cash balances in your bank accounts, tomorrow you want to go for rating, that your company wants to be rated. All right. In that case, they see the liquidity position of your company, how best you are maintaining the liquidity to meet your current obligations. Based on that, you will get credit rating. By mistake, if you get D, no banks will give you loan. If your company is getting a rate of D, which is the company is anyone who wants to invest in this company, have your own risk. There's no guarantee from the, in a sense, the credit rating companies do not give any kind of favorable rating or review on these companies. And we maintain a minimum amount of cash to minimize the interest cost. Why? Because on the other side we have loans. If you have lots of amount in current assets, the other side loans will cost interest. And we maintain the liquidity to avoid any technical insolvency. Like if you are not paying the supplier may go to the court of law stating that this customer is not paying me on time. Okay, a good cash management always is cash management system always, we can say, and optimal if it gives importance to O, P and R. O, P, R. O, P, R. This one giving importance to, sorry, liquidity, right? LPR. LPR. This one we give importance to liquidity, profitability and risk by maintaining adequate liquidity. Okay, you need to maintain some amount of cash, not to have any risk, not to have effect on profit, not to have any effect on liquidity. Okay? So if you have any surplus cash balances which are not needed for the next 1 month, 15 days, 2 months, you can just convert them back into marketable securities. Marketable securities are nothing but cash equivalents. Cash equivalents means at any time you can convert it back into the cash. Say for example, you have 1 million cash which is not required for the next 15 days. If you have a facility with any bank, we can go and deposit in fixed deposit, which we call it a certificate of deposit, CD. Okay, you want this amount to be paid to your supplier after 15 days from now. So you ask your banker that I want to invest this money for 2 weeks, that is 14 days. So 1 million into 14 days, is not a small amount. So just convert them into the marketable securities, which can be converted back into cash without any hassles. So cash marketable securities almost the same. The only thing is the format is different. Cash is 100% liquid, but certificate of deposit or any treasury bills, etc., will take some time, maybe a day or two. You just give an instruction to the bank to convert them back into cash.